I want to thank you guys for tuning in to the Bootz Sports Show. I'm your host today, Uncle Bootz, and I got a show today that's primarily dedicated to you, the fan. You guys have all been following the show, emailing, replying, filling up the comment sections of my shows, so I decided to reciprocate because I appreciate the time that you spend watching my videos and commenting. So I got some email and some fan mail, and this is a chance for you to get where I shout you out on the show. But first, before we get into that, and we'll also talk playoff football a little bit, I will first mention a couple guys that have been helping me out. At Mossberg, Dwayne Green on Twitter. If you want to follow Dwayne Green, he's an avid Cowboy fan. At Mossberg, Mozzberg, and my future broadcasting partner. Hopefully soon, real soon, he'll have his casts up as well. His Twitter page, especially if you're an Eagle fan and just like to keep the you like to listen to Eagle football and sports in general. Roy Moss 75. That's Roy Moss 75. If you put that in on YouTube, you'll be able to see him. He'll be uploading videos shortly. You can also follow him at Sideline Chatter on Twitter. Well, guys, like I said, I wanted to thank you guys because this is my first full month in doing these videos, and I've gotten a lot of support, more support than I thought I would, so I do appreciate you, the fan. So I'll be reading your questions, and I'm going to just pretty much get right down to it, and then I'll do some playoff predictions and kind of keep it, I'll try to keep it short, but that's hard for me to do. But anyway, I'm going to start off with and some of these questions aren't always great questions, but they're a little wacky, and I'll show you what I mean by that. But most of them are pretty good. Cowboy fans are generally pretty smart when it comes to knowing the team, personnel, and things like that. So I appreciate that. Mr. Wiseass79 pretty much wants to know, am I sold on Rob Ryan? And it's a great question. Rob Ryan has been a guy who's come from some defensive teams that haven't really been great, coming from Cleveland, coming from Oakland. You know, with those teams where he had a lot more hands-on opportunity. I know he's been pretty, you know, he's been influential and he's been mouthy as a coach, but he hasn't had a lot of talent. And I know people say, well, Dallas is different. He's had talent in Dallas. Well, a lot of his talent has been injured, and that's a fact, not an excuse. We're talking facts here. You know, I always say players can't use excuses on the field, but me as a fan, I can. If my team goes 6-10 with a backup quarterback, then I can say, you know what, I can say that we didn't have our starting quarterback. So I can say that. I would like to see Rob Ryan next year with this defense, provided they're mainly healthy. When you lose your two inside backers, you lose a couple starting defensive linemen in Jay Ratliff and Kenyon Coleman. You lose Barry Church, who the team felt really good about, thus signing him to a multi-year contract. Those things, when you lose those components, those parts, it's tough to win in this league, and that's on any side of the football. So I'm willing to give Rob Ryan another year or two just to see. The one good thing about it is he will have a healthy team next year. Bruce Carter, Sean Lee, those guys are already ahead of schedule, doing their rehab, so they should be ready for football next year. Nick Fulton asked this question. People keep saying we need a safety, and I was just wondering, do you think there's a chance of taking Tyrann Mathieu in the draft, the Honey Badger? Good question. Nick, and guys, I do appreciate you once again for chiming in, asking questions. I think Tyrann Mathieu is going to be a guy who will be available whenever you need him in the draft. So he'll be there in the 6th, he'll be there in the 7th, maybe even as a free agent. I think the reason is, obviously he didn't play football last year. Obviously he has a lot of a track history of trouble. And coaches it's a short window for coaches in the National Football League, because you have to produce now, and you can't waste picks on guys that are going to be either in the tub, the hot tub, the cold tub, or in jail, incarcerated. So you're going to need guys you can trust. Now, I'm not saying a guy's not going to draft him because he is a highly coveted player, but about the Honey Badger, you kind of worry. I don't think this team needs to invest in another safety. You know, I think Barry Church will come back next year, provided he's healthy, and he'll play well. The team, like I said, they were real high on him. But we also have a guy that we invested in, Matt Johnson, who should be coming along healthy next year, hopefully. You know, I know he hasn't been healthy all year, but the team feels real good about him, and that's one of the reasons why they didn't IR him for the rest of the season. They felt like another couple weeks he'd be ready to play. I think he's going to be a good player. He's just got to stay healthy. To answer your question, though, I don't think this team needs a guy like that. He's an undersized player. He's about 5'8", and I don't know if he's a safety or if he's a corner. You know, he doesn't seem like he's really either. He's kind of a hybrid player. May end up being a decent special teams player, but he's going to have to prove he can stay healthy and he can stay out of trouble. But I think the Cowboys, that's the type of player they would take out of their or off of their, you know, the bucket list, where they take guys off the draft board and throw them in the bucket and say that's a guy we're not going to draft, like they did a couple players last year, such as the inside backer for the Chicago Bears and the corner that the Rams took, who had a really good year. So there's a lot of players that the Cowboys will deem that are just not suitable because of their character. You know, Jason Garrett likes character guys, so that's his theme. The next question is 87 Musa. He asks, we should sign. We should sign. He actually says this is a statement more so. We should sign Tony Romo for 2 to 3 years and see if there's a quarterback with good potential in the draft 2 to 3 years down the road. Well, it would be convenient if Tony and his agent would allow us to sign him for 2 years or 3 years. But this is going to be Tony's probably final big contract. And if you think about it, the first contract he signed wasn't a huge contract because they got him before he was able to prove who he was. They signed Tony before he was able to prove who he was. Tony's probably an $80 million quarterback. You know, he's going to look at a deal like Matt Schaub, you know, something like that. You know, based off his track record, his numbers, and maybe even his playoff woes, he's still at least a $70-80 million quarterback. So whether you divide it up over 4 years or 5 years, Tony's going to want a 5-year contract, no question. And Jerry Jones pretty much going out and telling everybody that Tony's, you know, not the problem. Tony's agent is going to probably express those same sentiments by saying Tony's not the problem. The problem is your coaching staff. We want a big payday. So I don't think you're going to be able to sign Tony for 2 to 3 years. I think it's going to be 4 or 5, maybe even he's going to want 6. Tony will be 33 next year. He'll probably want to be paid till he's at least 38, 39. I would assume so. That's what I would fight for. Grabbing a quarterback 2 to 3 years down the road, you know, that's shot in the dark, man. I think it's a great idea. I think we should draft one this year and groom him and just hope that this quarterback can present that problem. You got Taj Boyd out there. You got E.J. Manuel. You got maybe even a Matt Barkley might be in your within your reach. Get a guy like that in here, and hopefully that he develops and can push Tony within a couple years. That's ideally what you want to do. General Pun asked the question. He heard that the Cowboys would bring in an offensive play caller for Garrett. Could that be Norv Turner, and would he be a good fit? I think it would be a great fit. And I think that Norv Turner, if he decided to acquiesce and take a play calling position versus a head coaching position, I think that would be, if he came to Dallas, it would be a godsend for what it would do to Tony Romo, Jason Garrett, and the rest of our offense. I mean, he's a Norv Turner has been amongst the best offensive coordinators, if not the best, when he was in the league, since he's been in the league. I think he would be very good for Jason as a mentor, play design. You know, I just think he'd be a really, really good candidate and would really give Jason more of a hands-on approach with the team where he can be that rah-rah guy, because Jason has done some really good things as far as changing the culture, as far as the team winning and fighting and not giving up. And I think Norv would be a very, very good candidate for that role. Mekio Wekio says the main problem is Romo. You can change all the pieces you wish in this on the team, but just draft another quarterback. I disagree with the fact that the main problem is Romo. And just a couple things. I know, like I said, this is the wrong time to defend Romo after what happened with the Washington Redskins game, losing the final game of the season, and Tony Romo throwing 3 interceptions. That I blamed him for all 3 of them, by the way. So it's very hard for me to sit here and support Romo, but I'm not a fool either, okay? Romo has... First of all, let me say this, and you tell me if you guys think that you can answer this question, but I can't think of another sports athlete that has been more snake bitten in his career than Tony Romo. Whatever you think about Tony Romo, you have to at least, this guy, I mean, I thought A-Rod, I thought LeBron James. I can't think of another player in the history of sports who's had as much bad luck as Tony Romo. You know, from the bobbled snap on the field goal in the Seattle game to the 3 interceptions. I mean, he's been snake bitten. So, you know, but with all that being said, Tony Romo has never had a 1,000-yard rusher. You know, he's never had one for a full season that rushed for 1,000 yards was Tony Romo. He's had a very, very, very lackluster offensive line, and I'm one who I don't think anybody has a good offensive line. Okay, I don't think that there's a team in the league day in, day out who has a good offensive line. There might be 1 or 2. Maybe you could tell me the 49ers offensive line is the best, and I would agree with that if you said that. But I don't think you can name a handful of offensive lines in the National Football League that are good with these passing quarterbacks. So if you tell me Aaron Rodgers' offensive line is great, I'm going to tell you it's not. It's Drew Brees. It's not. I'm just going to tell you these guys don't have great offensive lines. And I think Tony, you know, we think that the Dallas Cowboys are more or a lot better than they are, and they're not. You know, they haven't been good defensively. You know, I would love to blame Tony solely for that Washington Redskins game, but I would like to know, and maybe one of you guys will let me know this stat. You'll post it in the comments or send me the email. Some of you guys are real good, like Mekio Wekio. How many games does a quarterback win when there's a 200-yard rusher on the field? So when the opposing team rushes with one player for 200 yards, I would like to know the quarterback's record in those games, because that's what happened in that Washington Redskins game. He had a back rush for 200 yards, and everybody wants to act like it was Tony's fault in that game. We couldn't stop the run in that game. We couldn't stop anything. So I don't blame Tony. I do agree the team needs to move forward and get a better rushing, a better quarterback for the future, because Tony is not the future quarterback because of age only. I'm not saying because of play, but because of age only. So we do need to move in a different direction than that. Pretty lengthy and good, a good question, good statement, and I could go on about it, but I'll get to the next emailer. Joe in Kenville, it's not a Cowboy question, but he wants to know, what do the Minnesota Vikings have to do to win their playoff game against the Packers? And I will talk a little bit about each of those games a little bit later. I don't think there's anything that the Vikings can do to beat the Packers in Lambeau. And my reasoning is, and I know that's probably not the answer you want to hear as a Vikings fan, I just don't think that they're a good enough football team to beat the Packers in Lambeau, and the Packers will be getting a little bit more healthier. You know, we saw the Vikings play the Packers without their defensive captain, you know, Charles Woodson, you know, who's one of the best players at his position. You also seen the offensive wide receivers, or the skill set of the Packers, were missing a couple key players that were banged up, and it looks like their whole wide receiver core will be healthy for the first time this year if they'll play together. I think that however, if you want me to try to tell you how they'll win a game, they're going to have to cover better. They're going to have to make Aaron Rodgers move. Now, he's a great move quarterback. He's a great pocket quarterback. He has awesome pocket awareness. and he's very good running the football. If he doesn't see anything down the field, he can scoop for 24 yards on you. I just think that you gotta hope. And here's my other thing. I think you're gonna need a better performance out of your quarterback, and not talking about last week, just talking about the entire season. You're gonna need Christian Ponder to play out of his mind in the cold weather. You know, kid who played in Florida, you know, and he's going to have to play well in cold weather. So we'll see if they can do that. That's what you're going to need. You're going to need a duel. You're going to need a real fight out of the quarterback position. So I think that the Packers won't lose this game. So Dat Boy Floyd says, love your blog, and I thank you for the compliment. He says, I think we should switch first-round picks with the Washington Redskins. Give them our second and fourth rounder for Cousins. Romo broke his heart. He can't take it anymore. Cousins is a player, and he believes Cousins is going to be a player. I agree with your assessment that two assessments. Romo broke all of our hearts, and Cousins is a player. However, I don't think there is a chance in hell that the Washington Redskins would trade a player that they believe in to a team like the Cowboys who's in the same division. There's no way. We would have to give up 2 first-rounders just to compensate for the fact trading in the division. I don't know if there's a written rule, but I would suspect that there is a written rule amongst coaches that whatever the trade value is, that if it's in the division, we have to add more. So if I'm asking for a 4th rounder for a player out of division, in the division, it's going to be a 4th and maybe a 5th, or a 4th and a 7th, or it's going to be a 3rd. I believe that is a written rule. I don't have any proof of that, but that's how I would bargain. So I don't think that there's a chance that Kirk Cousins becomes a Dallas Cowboy via trade. So that's not happening. It would be ideal. It would be nice. There's no way they do that. Why would they want to help the Cowboys out at all? So, and if I did do it, like I said, I would do it for a 1st round and a conditional draft pick in the next year for Kirk Cousins if I did it with in the division. This email actually made me laugh a lot. So, this is Shawnee Sean 100, and he says, trade Romo for Terrell Pryor, and let's run a new era offense like the Seahawks and Colts and Redskins are doing. Now, he does bring up the point that I said the league is changing, the type of quarterback is changing. I did say that. However, I did not say to trade Romo for Terrell Pryor. And that is one of the worst fix-it plans that I've heard. Now, I'm not going to be too hard on you, Sean, because you are a passionate Cowboy fan, and I understand that. And I know that we all want change, but we don't want to move backwards. I mean, Terrell Pryor is definitely not going to take this team anywhere. He probably won't be. Matter of fact, his coach that's on his team right now is probably going to draft his successor right away and start him in the draft. So that's a no-no. Shawnee Sean also, now normally, but as soon as I saw trade Romo to the Raiders for Terrell Pryor, I normally would not even read that, but I do want to give him his due. He did type a lengthy comment, so he did spend the time, and he does bring up some good points. He says they need to get rid of Jason Garrett fast and in a hurry. His play calling is extremely suspect. Every week, he proves that he has no concept of clock management, how to call plays in certain situations. He's a former quarterback, so he's obsessed with passing the ball, and he often ignores the running game. Now, that part I agree with, mostly. So, I agree with everything you said about Jason Garrett, his makeup, what he's been doing as far as being very small in these big moments, coaching decisions. I call it situational coaching, situational awareness. Jason Garrett hasn't been good in those aspects. I don't know if firing him is what we need, and I'll tell you why really quickly. An offensive change of philosophy probably would be the worst thing for this team. Look how long it took Dez Bryant, Kevin Ogletree, even Miles Austin, some of these guys to get on the same page as Tony Romo. Whether it was calling plays and changing audibles, sight adjustments. You know, I wouldn't want to see Dez have to learn all that again. I wouldn't want to have to see Tony have to learn all of that nomenclature all over again. I wouldn't want to see any of our wide receivers, running backs, blitz pickups. I wouldn't want to see any of that change, because it took them a very, very long time, and it's still a growing, you know, it's a growing process right now. They're learning on the job. So I don't think that that would be a good idea, replacing Garrett. I think he does need help, like I mentioned, Norv Turner. I think he would be a very, very good. Now look, Norv might not want this opportunity. He might not want to babysit anybody. He's in his age now where he might not want to caretake anybody. You know. Now him and Garrett and Jerry Jones, they're all great friends. They're a team. They speak to each other. They work with each other. You know that. Laron Robinson that we picked up last year, Norv Turner called Jerry and said, hey, I got a guy here who I'm going to cut. And I think he'd help your ball club out a lot. That was Norv Turner who made that phone call to Jerry Jones and said, you might want to take a look at this kid. And look what Laron Robinson did as he led our team in touchdowns last year. So I think Norv would be an awesome guy to come in and help Jason Garrett. I wouldn't give up on Jason Shawnee just yet, and I do appreciate all your comments. I got one more, which was an email that was really lengthy, and it would take me 3 shows to read the whole thing, but I did highlight some important things. And this is, once again, is from a familiar name. It's Mekio Wekio. So he mentions he doesn't think that we should extend Romo. You know, he doesn't think it's a good solution to our problems. And I disagree there. Now, Mekio Wekio is saying that he wants to trade Romo to a thirsty quarterback team like Arizona, Tampa, Jacksonville, Buffalo, Oakland, the Chiefs, or the Browns. I don't know that. Now, he's saying that we would get at least 2 second-round picks for him. And I don't, like I've already said this on previous shows, I don't think you can start over with this team at the quarterback position unless you get a guy that's going to hit the ground running. And I don't think there's an Andrew Luck in this draft. So I don't think that that's a good idea, because it's going to take 2 or 3 years that DeMarcus Ware might not have, Jason Witten might not have. I mean, your team is going to be a lot older, and some of these guys have already passed their prime already. Their prime years are already past them. I just don't know that that's the route that you want to go with and get older and then try to win later when DeMarcus Ware is, an 8-sack-a-year guy. So I don't think that that's a good idea. I do think a team will give up a high draft pick for Tony Romo, because a team like the Minnesota Vikings, they got to think that if they had a guy like that on their team this year, they'd be a favorite to win the Super Bowl. And Tony would be saying, listen, give me the same 2,000-yard back that you gave John Elway and Adrian Peterson, and just like Elway went from he'll never win it, I'll do the same thing. Just give him a 1,000-yard running back. Let me just see him have that. But anyway, Mekio Wekio also goes on to say that he said Dallas will find a quarterback this year or next year. If you look at Nick Foles, Andy Dalton, Colin Kaepernick, Russell Wilson, they were all drafted in the 2nd round or later. And Jason Garrett had interest in those quarterbacks as well during the draft. Now here's where this starts to get real ridiculous. He says, since we'll have a young team, we can start Kyle Orton. And yes, I said Kyle Orton. And that's where I don't agree. I don't think you can do that. You can't do that right now at this age, with this team. This team has to win now. They have to do other things better. It's not just the quarterback position. Although the quarterback position showed up in a very, very bad spot, you can't put it all on the quarterback position, because what you're doing now in this lengthy email, it was very long, and it was the best email that I've received. And you talked about the process, the logic. You talked about your assessment. I mean, it was very well written, Mekio Wekio. However, I don't think that this team is just a quarterback away. I think there are more pieces that need to be filled in. Lastly, you say you don't know about me, but you believe Jason Garrett. You believe in Jason Garrett as a head coach and an evaluator of talent. I agree, 100% what you said there. And I said that earlier. Jason's done a fine job in the coaching aspect of it. The X's and O's and the situational coaching has been suspect. So, guys, once again, I want to thank you all for tuning in and chiming in, because that's what helps me deliver the best information that I can to you guys, is by you telling me exactly what you want to hear and the questions that you want to hear. And once again, bootsports@yahoo.com. You can definitely email me there. I just want to give a quick synopsis of the playoffs. I'm not going to go too much detail because I want to make this video short. Football's going to be starting soon, and I want to make sure I get this video uploaded because it takes forever to upload videos to YouTube. So, 4:30 game on Saturday. The first playoff game that you'll see is the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Houston Texans. And I think Cincinnati is a better team than most people are giving them credit for. I remember the Cowboys played Cincinnati, and people said, it's just the Bengals. I think they're a very good team coming on strong, and I like the way they're playing down the stretch. It's not the way that they're playing down the stretch; it's their balance. They have very good balance. They have a very good offense and a very good defense. They have a pretty good head coach. So I like they got guys that can run in the secondary, in Terrence Newman and the kid from Michigan. I've lost his name right now. Pac-Man Jones as well. They got some pretty good guys. So Leon Hall is who I'm thinking of. They got some pretty good guys that can run, and Vontaze Burfict has been, perfect. So he's been good. He's been everything more than what people thought he would be at the draft. He's been a whole lot more than that. He's been worth the draft pick, and they got a really good team. They got a real good front. Their interior linemen, I think Geno Atkins. I'm sorry, is a monster. He's hard to block. Very good interior player. So I like the Bengals in that game. And going into the Minnesota Vikings game, I already told you the Minnesota Vikings are playing the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau. I already pretty much told you I got Green Bay winning that game. I think they'll win big, but that's just me. Going into tomorrow's games is Indianapolis versus Baltimore. That's the toughest game, I think, to pick. And you have to like what Indy's doing over there. It's hard for me to pick the Ravens in a game like this, but I'm going to pick the Ravens at home. Ray Lewis should give them some emotion. I know Pagano's going to give the Colts a boost too, but I think Ray Lewis coming back should pump this team up and give them one last run. The last game, which will be the Seattle Seahawks versus the Washington Redskins. I know now that RG3 is not healthy and won't be healthy through the playoffs. He's playing on gut and emotion and adrenaline. And I know that he's not healthy. And I think that had the Cowboys done the game plan, now me and Sideline Chatter got into a discussion about how I felt we should have attacked RG3, and he felt we should have sat back and zoned him. And I felt like we should have blitzed him, because once I saw that he wasn't healthy, I felt we should have blitzed him heavily. And we should have kept it moving, kept blitzing him. I just felt like the whole game you should have not given him time to sit back and throw. I think Seattle will do a lot of that. I think Seattle's built they have a lot more athletes out there on the field. Their corners will be back. They'll be ready to play. They have some tremendous players, Seattle. I think now they do have a long hike. They do have a long road trip, but I think they'll be prepared to beat the Washington Redskins. So, guys, thanks again for listening. I will probably do a post show. I'll see, what's going on. I'll probably have a show in maybe Monday or Tuesday. I'm going to try to upload this show. Once again, this was the fan show. This was for you guys. It wasn't for me, because without you guys, obviously, I wouldn't be doing this. So I do appreciate it. And make sure you put like on the video if you can. just click the thumbs up arrow or subscribe, and you'll definitely know the next times that I'm doing shows. Once again, guys, thanks for listening, and enjoy your weekend. And definitely email me at bootsports@yahoo.com. Thanks, guys.